Hey everyone, welcome to the intro to episode 35.
Close, 41.
41. I was already saying the 30,
Yeah.
and then you held up the numbers, and I
Yep.
just added them.
Yep.
All right, 41. My name is Phil.
Always off to a great start when we get the number wrong.
I don't care.
I'm Chris.
And today we had a lot of news.
Pretty news heavy, guys.
Pretty news heavy. Not all news,
Nope.
but a lot of news.
Almost all news.
So we talked about some Steam news in
Yep.
terms of well, I don't need to go into it. We talked about some
Yeah.
Steam news.
We talked about a couple upcoming games, a couple of trailers and game announcements and game news pre E3.
Yes. Yeah, this is the big, we wanted to get this out of the way before E3
Yeah.
news file.
And then I finished off the episode with completing my House of Wolves Destiny DLC talked about the Prison of Elders, the arena.
Yep, and then we set up two things. A future episode that we want people to play. We'll just pitch it real quick.
Yep.
Play Massive Chalice and Life is Strange episodes 1 and 2 within the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
We're going to do a very spoiler-heavy episode talking about those two games. And then we also impose for the group of listeners, you guys, to suggest games for me and Chris to play. It is completely your suggestion. We will draw them at random.
Yep.
And then we will have a spoiler-filled episode talking about whatever game we draw randomly. This podcast is sponsored by Jiffy Lube.
Yep. If possible, for those games, we will try to stream them.
Yes.
If that is possible,
Yeah.
depending on what game they are.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, enjoy this episode.
Yep.
Let us know what you think.
Yep. Rate and review us on iTunes, guys.
Yep. And we will see you next week. Next week. He played the new Rock Band, and he really liked it.
That's
He's
good.
He's like, they're doing...
Because that's the closest to the last iteration.
Yeah.
So there's not much different.
Apparently they're doing a lot of interesting things
Good.
that he can't necessarily comment on because some of it's still under NDA.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from everybody. They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, it's great. We can't tell you why yet,
Yeah,
but we've
it's-
played it and it's a lot of fun, and we
it's a
can't
lot-
say that."
Lot of fun.
Yeah. So hey everyone, welcome to the episode. I'm Chris.
And I'm Phil.
Today we got a little bit of news. Hopefully we can jump right into it.
Yeah, well, and hopefully we can stretch it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I meant. I pretended like it was casual, and we're just gonna start talking
just
about
like
some news and see how
little bit of
this
news.
goes.
I mean,
a
'cause
little
I
bit
got
of news.
So many games to talk
Hopefully
about.
we can go at least an hour. Otherwise, we're gonna be playing some Porcupine's Revenge, I think.
Okay.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. News.
So first bit of news on my list is obviously that NBA 2K16 is now going to be a Spike Lee joint.
Boom.
So what that means is supposedly Spike Lee is directing the story mode.
Yeah.
Last year it was heavily influenced, or Pharrell was a big part of it.
Yep.
He didn't direct it or anything, but he just chose the music and was
was-
like a motion capture character.
Yep.
But the covers for NBA 2K16 were leaked a month or so ago, and they had the text on it,
Spike Lee joint.
the Spike Lee joint. So, what do you think of this?
I'm kind of indifferent / I think it's going to be awful.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
No. I would say that most of my time with NBA 2K15 is not playing the story mode anyway.
Yeah,
I created a team.
you just do
Took
my
them-
career.
Yeah. Took an entire team through the season and won, and there's no story in that. That's just game to game to game. And I've dabbled with the story, but it's just so bad. And
Yeah.
You only play as one character, which is what you're supposed to do, but sometimes I want to switch characters and play the entire team. I don't know. I like the idea of the story mode, but it doesn't capture my interest as much as just playing.
You only really do it once.
Yeah, for sure, because the story's the same.
It's the same every time, and it's like, I don't want to keep doing this. It's fun to do once, and you feel like, oh, this is like a career. It's like watching a TV show of my
Yep.
players, but then after that, it's like, okay, I've already seen it.
Yeah. The thing with 2K15 that you could technically play multiple times is that in the very beginning you kind of get to pick what team you try out for.
Yeah.
And then that team has a star player that's actually voiced by the star player. So I imagine they'd say different things.
If you just chose other teams all the time.
If you chose other teams.
But realistically, I think probably somebody plays as one, maybe two different teams. But like you have your favorite team and you're going to play as them every time.
Yeah. And the thing is you can't pick any of the 32 teams. Like,
Oh,
because
really?
you're, like, the story is in 15, you're an undrafted rookie.
Yeah.
And you get to essentially try out after the draft for any of, like, the bottom feeder teams.
Okay.
So it's like you get to pick between, you know, like the Sacramento Kings and the Charlotte Bobcats. Like, you don't get to pick like Bulls or Spurs or
Yeah.
Lakers. Like, those aren't your choices.
No, they couldn't afford to pay those people to be voice actors.
Yeah. So like, you know, you could technically start as a bottom feeder team and then you can request a trade later and blah blah blah, and you can eventually get to be on a good team. But so it's like there's maybe only like 4 possible teams to start with.
Yeah. Are you a little bit worried that you won't be able to create yourself in the game, since I'm sure he's removed all the options to play as white players?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to come up with a new.
Yeah.
It'll have to be retro.
Yeah.
You know, just make a character and then pick a random name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without Phil with the thinning hairline, it's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know. The story mode is a great idea, and I like it as somebody who plays single player, but like, you don't need to get people in here to make this a story.
I have a feeling that it's not going to be much different than NBA 2K15, but it's just his name's on it now.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't do any work, but I'm sure it's not like they completely revamped the way they told the story or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's just a promotional thing, both for him and for the game.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, like, it's not going to be like you get to go out on the town and then there's going to be like a robbery that you're indicted
Exactly.
in.
Like, anything that has to do with him, like, filmmaker-wise, I don't think he's going to put that into the game, because that'd be a bad idea, like, PR standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, you are now committed to
Right.
jail?
Unless if the whole idea is you can only play as the Lakers and, like, Daniel Stern is like coming down on you because of the racist comments and all this other stuff.
And then you get to come to the Knicks, and the Knicks
Right.
are the savior because of the,
Yeah.
and like
exactly.
they're angelic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I'll get 2K16. I'm usually like a every other year kind of basketball person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. It would also get the least amount of playtime for me if I did get it.
Yeah.
The story mode, that is.
All right. The other bit of news I have is, so Black Tusk, the company that is in charge of making the Gears of War franchise now, has changed their name to the Coalition, which is a reference to an organization inside the Gears of War franchise. And they said their thinking behind it was they wanted to, you know, be synonymous with the Gears franchise, just like 343 is synonymous with Halo. And the first response I heard was somebody said, when I think of Halo, I think of Bungie, and when I think of Gears of War, I think of Epic. So, like, that was a stupid analogy to use.
Yeah.
But the weird thing to me is I thought they changed their name to Black Tusk after they got the Gears franchise, before they were like Microsoft Studios Vancouver.
Yeah,
So-
I think that sounds about right.
So for them to change it yet again seems a little bit weird, and it also seems like, not that they probably were going to have a chance to work on anything else, but it really did pigeonhole them into only doing everything 100% Gears.
Which is dangerous in the fact that, like, if Gears doesn't sell well or stops being, like, a huge hit, then it's just like, oh, you're done. Because you don't have anything else to fall back on.
I mean, it's not like they called it, like, Marcus Phoenix Productions or something. So, like, the Coalition, you can get away with doing other stuff, but it just seems like that was just a move to say, hey, we're only doing Gear stuff.
I think my thing is just, like, to rename your company anything one game specific is just kind of a dumb idea.
Yeah.
Unless you're, like, an independent company, you're like an indie dev, and it's just like this is gonna be your magnum opus, and it's, you know, Dragon style, and then you want to name your company something in that game, fine. But like a big company,
like King.
Yeah, you can go King.
Yeah.
Perfect. I don't know. It just seems like 343, like, eventually, like, the well's gonna dry up on some of these. I know people don't believe it, but, like, Call of Duty's not gonna be Call of Duty forever. You know, eventually that'll die.
Well, also, the name of the studios that make the games are not Call of Duty
Yeah,
studios.
but I'm saying, like, you wouldn't want to change it to, you know, whatever, Ghost Studios or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever, good for them for changing their name for the third time, I guess. But
Yeah.
hopefully Gears continues to sell, otherwise they're going to have to change it again when they work on Mirror's Edge 3.
Yeah. Also, so Killer Instinct released a new mode called Shadow Mode that learns the way you play. So it's basically you create an AI character that's based on the way you play. So it just, I don't know exactly how it works, but like you play a certain amount of matches and it learns how you do combos and how you do moves and all this other stuff. I've even heard that you can teach it how to teabag. If you teabag after winning a match, then it'll do that also. And this whole idea of like creating a AI version of yourself that plays other people while you're not around is like something they tried to promote when Xbox One first came out. I know that driving game that came out at launch.
Yeah. It was supposed to learn from you, and then like when you play with your friends, like then they might not even be there. You're just playing against what would Chris do in this situation kind of thing.
And they were saying how like it's like the power of the cloud and all that stuff. They're not doing that with this, but it's an interesting thing as far as fighting games go, because there really is a difference between playing the computer, even if you're playing hard, than playing a person online.
Yeah,
it's not always harder or easier, but it's, you know, people play differently. Usually, it's a lot more annoying to play somebody online than it is the computer. So,
for sure.
I guess this would be a good technique if you want to like train how to fight well for tournaments or something. But other than that, I don't think I would have fun playing a fake version of one of my friends. I'd rather just play them and, you know, actually be playing them, because who cares then? If he beats me and teabags me, it's not the same thing as if my friend actually beats me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think the whole thing is like the bragging rights are gone if you're playing an AI version. Like if all of a sudden you came to me the next day and you're just like, oh my god, I whooped you like 10 times. I'd just be like,
no you didn't.
Cool. I was playing Forza. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or the same thing if you were just like, God, you teabagged me like 10 times. Just be like, I still don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
So it's like, you can't brag that you defeated me, and then I can't brag that my computer beat you, because it's like, unless it's saving the videos and I can go and watch and giggle and be like, yay!
I mean, I don't even know how it would work. It probably is its own game mode. It's not like you can go online. Because I was thinking is the only thing that this could really benefit would be a game that doesn't have an online like fan base anymore.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to go and play like an online match or a ranked match, you would then play one of these AI characters. I think that makes more sense to me than like just playing a shadow version of Phil.
Yeah, well, I would also say, like you said, like the preparing for tournaments, if you could download them and then do offline, and you could just be like, if you had a big group of friends, you could download and just be like, hey, you know, I'm practicing for a tournament, so I need to practice against different play styles, and I know that Joe's really good with Jason, and you know, whatever, and all this stuff, and then you can sit there and you can play, and it'd be like, oh man, I'm really struggling against this. This is what I need to practice kind of situation. But that's taking it a step.
But the people that are
too
that
far.
serious about actual like money tournaments have people that they train with anyway. It's like actual people.
Yeah.
So.
They're playing in person.
Yeah.
It's not just downloading things online, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a cool concept, but I just don't know how much the layman would use it.
Right.
Like, it'd be cool to get your... If it's something that's like... And I don't know how it works, maybe you do. But,
Not
like,
really.
if you create your profile and you put it up online and you get, like, let's say, experience every time your character wins or something like that, then that's a fine idea, because it's just like, oh, I don't have to sit and play 900 matches to get all this experience points. Like, my character, every time somebody chooses to play against my character, I'm getting certain XP for winning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it's like, okay, I have a reason to make my character good, so then it's harder to beat online, and even if I'm not playing, I'm still kind of getting a benefit for the game. But if that's not the case, and it's just playing online against a friend who's not there,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, I don't really care for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine too if it's something like they're not saying like, oh, this is like a release.
Yeah, it's not a
Sort of thing.
separate
It's-
game.
yeah.
Like, this is the only mode.
Right. So it's just something they've added onto a game that's a couple years old at this point, so that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just like,
What's the point?
practical
Yeah.
purposes for someone who's a casual fighting fan like myself, like if I had that game, are slim to none of why I would do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'd try it once or twice, but then I'd just be like, I'm going to go back to playing the computer, and
Right.
then if my friends come over, I will play them.
Right. Also, so I guess Lego Dimensions announced some more franchises that are going to be part of it, including Scooby-Doo, Jurassic World, which makes sense since they have the rights now to do
Yeah, and they're
Jurassic
doing
Park stuff.
a Jurassic World other
Standalone
video
game, right? Ghostbusters, yes. The Simpsons and Doctor Who.
But only the girl Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So once again, it just seems like they're skewing older, except for like the Jurassic World, because that's something that's coming out right now.
Yeah.
All those other franchises are like, people that enjoy it would be from like the 80s and 90s. So I'm all for it. Like, I'm super excited to play as like Ghostbusters and probably The Simpsons. Like that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's crazy, like you said, that it's kind of skewed towards people that are our age and
Yeah.
not towards like little kids. But there are stuff like they added Ninjago,
Right.
and Lego Chima, and
Definitely.
stuff for them as well.
This is just like some of the newer major announcements. Like, I'm sure there's going to be like hundreds by the time it comes out.
It's just one of those things where it's just like, I wonder. I'm sure they're trying to get the best of both worlds of
Yeah.
Skylanders and at like Amiibos, but I imagine it's just like, hey, we want people that are our age to get things like Ghostbusters and Doctor Who and stuff that
Yeah.
the kids aren't watching because they want to quote unquote collect it, and then we also want to sell the kids stuff like the Chima and that, so then like the kids with parents are just like, you have to go out and buy this. So now
Yeah.
we have both market shares of
Exactly.
crazy nerds who want to collect things,
Yeah.
and then little kids, and they're playing the same game. Just genius if it works. I mean, if the game's even halfway decent, like, I'd probably invest in getting, a Simpsons set or a
Yeah.
Back to the Future set just to kind of see how things work.
Yeah, dependent too on how much it's tied to buying the standalone sets.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know how much, just if you just buy the game without any of the, actual physical Lego sets, how much can you play? How many levels are there? That's going to be interesting too, because if it's a decent size on its own, like, I would consider getting this like pretty early on.
Yeah,
Just
and
because
then
it seems
slowly
like,
growing it.
yeah, it seems like it would be a lot of fun to try. Another thing that they released a trailer for with these new stuff is you could sort of like each of the when the characters come with the vehicle, the vehicles are then in the game, and there's all this new vehicle stuff.
Yeah.
But also you're able to. There's like different variations of those vehicles that you can build. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
So you can. I think it's usually at least 3, probably minimum and maximum of 3 different ways to rebuild the Legos that you have into different vehicles, and then those vehicles have the the look and the different features of that in the game. So I don't know how the game tells the difference. Like, I don't know how the little base that you plug your Lego thing into knows how you've all of a sudden switched around the Legos.
Does. I imagine because they're only going to have like one piece that has the sensor on it.
Yeah.
So that sensor's always going to be on the bottom per se. So I imagine it just, you kind of have to tell, like, maybe the game
Unless
pauses.
it's just a little switch where you can be like, it's vehicle 1, 2, or 3 variant.
Maybe it's something like that. But I imagine like you just have to tell it which vehicle you have, because otherwise, I don't know. Like, if the game is that advanced where it's just like, oh, I can tell that you've built the second one,
Because that'd be crazy.
then it's insane. You're like, you have a headlight out of place. So
Yeah.
like, what? How did you know that?
Your taillight's out.
Yeah, but I imagine it just has to be a switch, or like
Yeah.
the game pauses and it gives you like, build this vehicle, and then you just hit like done,
yeah.
and then it's just like it automatically switches.
But it's cool that they're trying to integrate the Legos, like actually building Legos into it.
Yeah,
And you get more out of than the little play sets that you buy.
yeah, because then you're not just building one thing, putting it on a shelf.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, technically, if you're going to do it the official way, then you're going to have to like take that apart, build something new.
Yeah.
And I imagine they'll incorporate that into maybe the sets as well. As maybe the set initially you build it and it's whatever, a jail cell,
Uh-huh.
and then you eventually take it down, and then you could turn it into a different set. I don't know.
Yeah, they're sort of, because they're, one of the main characters, the main heroes, is Wildstyle from the Lego Movie, and the whole idea of like the master builders in the Lego Movie was they could take anything apart and build something else. So
yeah, like I said, I mean, like I'm intrigued. I agree. I want to see how in depth the game is and how much is like paywall.
yeah,
Because what I hear is that it's kind of like a Traveler's Tales Lego game, where you're still like hero levels, you destroy everything, you get coins, you're going to collect gold bricks.
yeah,
But is there going to be, like in most of the Lego games, you get to a point where you're just like, oh, only bounty hunters are allowed past this door, like in Star Wars, or like, oh, you need a character who can destroy silver bricks. Is that going to now be like, oh, you need only Back to the Future characters can get through here?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, really? So like, I spent $6 on the
like
game.
I feel like I haven't gotten the full game. Like there's so many
That'll be how it breaks up. If it's just like you can play the full game and it's just like, hey, as an added bonus, if you want to play a Scooby-Doo in this level, great. But if it's like, oh, you can't go here unless you're Scooby-Doo, then it kind of feels like you've cut
I'm sure
out
there's
the
going to be a
game.
little bit of that just to give you incentive to buy new things.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully it's not integrated to so much in the game that you feel like they just cut stuff out, so you have to buy a lot of things.
And they still haven't released pricing on the individual sets.
Right, I think
And
they're
that's
still
what
filling that out.
That's what I'm most interested in, because that's kind of going to tell me how much I would invest. If like the little sets are $5, $10, okay.
Yeah.
But if it starts getting like $20, then it's just like, okay, you're asking a lot of money investment
Right.
to enjoy.
The
a
problem
Lego
is, I
game.
think even if they asked for 15-20, they would probably make a shit ton of money.
Oh, they would.
Yeah.
Like, they would do fine. I'm just saying, like, that's
You
my
personally
barrier
are not
for
gonna-
entry.
yeah.
I'm not gonna pay $200 on a Lego game and get the base game for whatever. Let's say it's $80, because it's going to be more than $60, because it's going to come with whatever its starter kit.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pay $20 a group of characters, and you're like, okay, Simpsons 20, Back to the Future 20, Ghostbusters 20, and you're already looking at $160
$60
game that you're like, this is still just a Lego game.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest game I've ever played. It's just kind of unique.
Right. Anyway, then there's been some sort of pre-E3 news.
Yep.
So Take-Two, the company that owns the rights to BioShock, just said that the BioShock franchise is still very important to them. So there hasn't been any sort of news about them making a new game or any of that stuff. They dissolved the actual developer that made the game.
Yep. Ken Levine's
at a
company.
different company now.
Yep.
So that was one of those, non-news news stories.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to announce anything at E3. I think they were kind of being like, hey, don't expect us to talk about it at this E3, but just because we don't talk about it doesn't mean that the BioShock franchise is dead.
Yeah, I think and I think that's really all it is. It's something telling them just like, hey, we still like the BioShock franchise. We're still going to give it a go, but we're not necessarily working on anything right now.
Which I think is smart on their part.
Yeah.
Like if they were like, hey, we're going to come out with BioShock again, even though none of the creative team is here, but we need money, so we're going to make a BioShock 3.
Yeah, I don't know, like, sometimes I feel that games should just end.
Yeah.
I think Mass Effect should just end at 3. I think BioShock, granted I haven't played it, but
Right.
if all the creative heads are gone,
Yeah.
I think you just move on. You had 3 good games. Now
You had 2.5 good games.
You had 2.5 good games. Now you just develop a new IP with
Yeah.
the people that are there. But then again, I am not somebody who is driven by just collecting a paycheck.
Yeah. Also, Phil Spencer, the head of Microsoft, tweeted about Crackdown. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
Basically, he said that they're not saying which games they're going to announce at the E3 press conference yet, but that Crackdown is making progress. Like somebody specifically asked, "Hey, are we going to get to see Crackdown footage?" And he was like, it's making a lot of progress, but we haven't announced what what we're going to show yet. So that's once again sort of non-announcement.
Yeah.
I think this is more important though, because Crackdown is still being made. It's in development, and video games, unlike movies, will often get canceled. Like they'll get announced at E3 or something. Years later, they'll get canceled, and you won't hear about it for another 5 years after that.
Yeah.
So just to say something's still in the works, I think is semi-important in the video game world.
Semi.
Yeah.
Because there's always and this is the extreme case, but there's always, Duke Nukem was always still in the works.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, 8, 9, 10 years that it was still in the works, and then when it finally came out, it was
garbage.
It was garbage,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even close to what it was initially made to be. So it's like, here's what I think about Crackdown. It's like Crackdown, I think, because it was semi-announced last E3, right? Because they had the logo or something,
right?
right?
And there was a full CG trailer.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like this is, you kind of have to start announcing it if you had a full
if you
CG
want us to still
trailer.
care about it.
Yeah. Because otherwise, what would scare me is if they're just like, oh, we're not going to show Crackdown because whatever, it's making progress, but it's not there. To me, it's like, okay, a whole year you've somehow gone backwards. Because you don't go from CGI trailer to we don't have anything to show.
Because, the CGI trailer might have happened right at the start of development. They were like, hey, we're giving you money, we're going to finance this, make another Crackdown. And they're like, okay, well, we're a month in development. We obviously don't have anything we can actually show, so let's just create a CG trailer. So I think they should give us something, even if it's another CG trailer.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, I don't think they're going to have finished gameplay to show yet.
No, but then that's always the danger, though. Is like I feel like announcing something too early, like doing
when
the
you
CG
don't know
trailer,
what it's going to look like,
when
or
you
anything.
don't know what it's going to look like. It's just like, okay, well now it's almost we expect it because you've already announced it. We know the game's being worked on. You've had a whole year since last E3 to technically work on it. Yeah. You have to show us something, whether it's here's just the tutorial level. Here's some in-game footage, but in trailer form of just like a character jumping over a building or something like that. It's like you got if you are just like, oh, we're still working on it, but we have nothing to show. It's just like, what'd you do for a whole year? I know games take a long time.
Yeah, it usually takes like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's just like you had a whole year and you regressed is kind of how I would interpret it.
Do you think it's okay for them to stop working on the game just to come up with something to show at E3? Because companies used to do that all the time, and I don't, because E3 was such a big deal, they would, cut and paste together a demo just to have something to show at E3 because they needed to, and that would take, time and resources away from working on the actual game.
I think, and this is tough, but I think if you've already announced it, then I think, yes, you have to take some people off the team, and even if it's just create a trailer, because it's announced. If you haven't announced anything yet, and you have a game
shown anything,
or maybe like a screenshot or whatever, but you're like, then I'd just be like, you don't have to because technically no one's expecting it.
Yeah.
Like Halo 5, for instance, if they don't show anything at E3, like even though we know it's coming,
especially for a game that comes out this year.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, like, is there something going? Is there a problem? Is Halo 5 got some problems?
If they didn't show any Halo 5, it would be because there was some serious problem.
Yeah.
Something happened big.
So, I think some games and some productions you have to show if people know it and are waiting to see us.
Yeah, for the big tentpole flagship games, and Microsoft owns the rights to Crackdown. It's one of their exclusives, and they announced it. So, they have the resources to come up with something. It's not like a little indie, that did a Kickstarter. I wouldn't expect them to show something.
Yeah, we don't need to see the Banjo-Kazooie...
Yeah, the ukulele.
We don't need to see that because it's just like, okay, we don't know what company it's tied to right now. Like, I know it's an independent thing, but it's just like, you know, we don't know if is a distributor going to be EA or something like that. So, I don't need to see anything about that to know that it's still in the works. But, big, like you said, tentpole games, PlayStation has to show Uncharted 4.
Yeah.
Microsoft has to show Halo 5 and Crackdown and the exclusives.
Yeah, we can transition into that then. Did you sort of unofficially leaked and now officially announced is the Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection?
Yep.
So it's kind of stupid that they're all taking the Halo, the Master Chief collection name because there was Gears, the Marcus Phoenix collection. So it's kind of stupid, especially since they're copying Halo, and they're supposed to be sort of rivals.
Yeah.
For them to take that, because Nathan Drake's in all the games. The reason it was called the Master Chief Collection was because it was supposed to be only the Master Chief games.
Yeah.
But to call it like Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection, Nathan Drake is the lead character in all of those games.
Uncharted. There's no Uncharted 2.0. Just starring Sully. Like there's no other.
But I think because they're just trying to jump on the HD remake bandwagon, and because all these other companies are remaking their games and making money for not doing new stuff, they're like, okay, well, this is our one.
This is our flagship.
Yeah, this is our one like exclusive at this point. Because I mean, sure they have other properties, but not that are coming out with newer games. But Uncharted 4 is coming out soon, so like this is a way to promote that. And I don't know anything about it other than it's been announced, so I don't know if they've just upped it to 1080 60 frames, or did they actually touch the graphics at all?
It leaked on Amazon, right? It was on an Amazon
which
price
happens
page.
all the time. Yeah.
And then they took it down, and then they just said like, yes, this thing's coming.
Yeah.
I imagine and I don't know 100%, but I imagine is they just upped the graphics and they put 1, 2, and 3
in a box together.
And they probably didn't even
PS4 now.
Yeah, and you probably didn't even touch 3 or something because that's the most recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I imagine anything that now has a multitude of games, we're going to start seeing these.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to maybe do a Lost Planet or a Dead Space collection, which, okay, you got 3 games, I guess it could be worth it.
I wouldn't mind if they redid BioShock.
Yeah.
Because they're, they don't have the creative team there anymore. But they have the resources to have an engineering team to redo the graphics without actually touching any of the gameplay or the story or any of that stuff. So I'd be fine with them doing that because it was never graphically that great.
The first one was.
No, not really. Even when it came out, it was behind the times. Like the art style is great.
Yeah.
That's what's fun about it. But it's not, it's using the sort of bad Unreal Engine where people were just sort of cut and paste things. Like all the games look the same in those couple of years.
Yeah.
So I would be fine if a company like that, that's a different situation though than this.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, and we had this argument a long time ago of just like re-releasing stuff, and it's just like I feel like we're at the point with the new systems where this shouldn't be the big names anymore.
Yeah.
Like you should be announcing like Xbox One games that are just Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games that are just PlayStation 4 or Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games. That should be your big announcements, not hey, we're bringing 360 games to Xbox One or hey, we're bringing PlayStation 3 games to PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Like you want to do Uncharted, great, that's your flagship. You want to do Halo, great, that's your flagship. But it's like, okay, then we did Gears of War. Okay, great. It's another big one. It's Microsoft Studio. But just like, if we start doing like, great, now here's Little Big Planet. We're putting all those on PlayStation 4. And here's BioShock. And here's Lost Planet. And here's Dead Space. And here's Mass Effect. It's just like, what new shit are you guys working on?
Yeah.
Like,
you don't need to show that at E3 because we already know exactly what those games are. Show us something new.
It's like, yeah, we updated the graphics. Fantastic. Make a new fucking game.
Yeah.
I don't need, the next, like, oh, cool. Another set of 3 games that I've already played. Here's Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and 3 now on Xbox
Well, especially
One
if they're not actually doing anything to the graphics. Like, if it's a game that was, 10, 15 years old and they just redid the entire game, that I think is more worth an announcement in this stage, in the E3 stage, than something like, hey, this game that came out 2 years ago.
We're just putting on a new shiny disc that can be read by the Xbox One.
Right.
Yeah, I don't... what was the topic?
Nothing. We were just talking about the Nathan Drake collection. Yeah. And then also there's a new trailer for Tomb Raider, which is...
The Lara Croft collection.
Yeah. No, it's a temporary... It's a timed exclusive to Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
But just watching the trailer just made me think of, it's all in a snow setting and she's like climbing up an ice wall and all that stuff. I feel like they set it in the sort of icy scenario. Like the environment's all icy because it's like the opposite of Uncharted, which is all like deserts and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but like,
we have the ice.
Right. Well, because it was like, okay, so Tomb Raider was always supposed to be the female Indiana Jones. Yeah. And then Uncharted was always supposed to be the male Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons I kind of don't like Uncharted, only in theory, just because they're basically just trying to say he's Indiana Jones. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
you're not
it's
that cool.
a treasure hunter that is supposed to be funny and smart and not
and handsome
murderer,
and
except for the fact that he murders everyone.
So I don't know. That looks cool. There hasn't been any gameplay yet. I'm sure we're probably going to see that at E3.
I'd hope so.
Did you never played the remake, right?
No, it's still on my list of
games to buy in 6 years.
Games to buy in 6 years.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those games where it's just like, yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be a now kind of thing. Like, there are other games that are higher on my to-play list.
Yeah, hopefully this one does not have multiplayer, so there's no reason to go ahead and get it right away.
I would bet you...
The last one did.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I would bet you a lot of money that this one also has multiplayer.
Oh, okay.
They're not gonna... I don't know how many companies are willing to forego a chance at multiplayer no matter how shoehorned it is.
Yeah.
You can play as 20 Lara Crofts in Team Deathmatch.
Right, and just shoot each other a bunch.
Awesome!
Yeah, cover-based shooter for Tomb Raider. Yeah. That's what everybody knows it
crossbow.
For. Yeah.
And Turok is an unlockable character.
That just made me think, too, Evolve, a couple weeks ago now, sort of was or I guess it was Turtle Rock who created Evolve, said, hey, like, Evolve might be too multiplayer focused. It's like, yep, that's all it is. All you did was create, but they're kind of saying, hey, we might have gone too far in the multiplayer thing. It's like, yeah, that's what everyone was saying since you announced it.
Yeah.
So at least they've recognized that.
It's a little late, but they recognized
like the game wasn't a failure at all.
It still sold decent, I think.
Right, but like looking that compared to like a Left 4 Dead, obviously Left 4 Dead I think has more, it gives more to the player and it has a longer shelf life.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one match over and over and over again, and it's not contingent on who else you're playing against.
Yes.
So once that user base goes away, or if you're not playing with your friends, then the game is not the same.
Yeah, I mean we talk about like especially like coming up with Rainbow Six that's coming out, and all those games that are like these 4-player co-op games. Just like you get them at launch day. That is a lot of fun if you have a lot of friends. But like you said, like eventually the player base dries up, and then those games are shelved because you can't play them. Or if your friends move on, then those games are shelved. Yeah. So it's like Evolve fell into that trap where I just think it's...
For the first month, it was great.
Yeah, but then it just like you start to see drop off that's so quick because unlike as much as I hate it, like a Call of Duty, you're just playing online.
Yeah.
So you don't need your friends there. It's better with friends. You can talk to them and you can work out strategies, but you can just jump into a quick match, get paired with whatever 4 or 5 other people, and then just go shoot 4 or 5 other people.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't...
No, it's not just... Same. Yeah, it's not like 4 people on your team, and each of them has their one specific role, and it's all about, like hide and seek sort of thing. So it's different than if you're just shooting a bunch of guys that keep respawning.
Yeah.
But also, I think in that announcement, or in that interview, they're also kind of saying, like, they're like Evolve 2 is not dead. They haven't announced it, but they're saying, like, if they do another game, it's not going to be just a straight multiplayer one-match type sort of thing.
Yeah. And I hope they do more Evolve because I really liked the concept of it.
Yeah.
The first one just wasn't for me because one, the only person I knew that had it was you, but it's on Xbox One and it's not going to communicate with PC. At least I don't think.
I don't think it does either.
So it's just like for me to get it and then play random strangers is just so non my style. It would have been, it's like, wow, I really like this idea. I would really like to have gotten a group of people together, but that's not happening, so I guess I'll just pass on this game until until it's offered free.
In the Evolve collection.
Yeah.
You can buy the first 3 games.
Yeah.
With new graphics.
Yeah, all the first 3. They should start doing it now. They should start selling 3 packs of games when 2 other games haven't come out yet. It's like future DLC. It's like getting a season pass. But we have no idea when these games are going to come out. Get the Mirror's Edge pack now.
Yeah.
You get the first one, we'll up the graphics.
Yeah.
The second one when it comes out in 5 years. And the third one if we decide to do it in 15 years.
Right.
All for only $150.
And when we inevitably close this branch of the studio that's working on it in a year, we still get to keep that money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just filter that somewhere else.
Also, a game was announced, XCOM 2.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Did you watch the trailer?
I did.
I think there was almost like a 3-minute trailer they announced, right?
Yeah. But it didn't really show any gameplay.
No, it was all CG.
Yeah.
But it just showed you the story that the world takes place in, basically.
Yeah, the story is supposed to be enemy unknown if you got the bad ending, which is the aliens win.
Yeah. Supposedly that is the true ending.
That is the true. This is now the canon true ending. Is the aliens win and you are kind of a group of resistance.
Yeah. So aliens
fighters.
have taken over the planet.
Yep.
And so basically the events of last game, like you lost, the aliens won that fight.
Yep.
And so now you're living in this sort of like Nazi state where the aliens are like your overlords. So like you're supposed to be in this fun, happy town, but there's like all these statues of aliens and like they're constantly like patting people down and you know, just what you would expect for an enemy occupied town to look like.
Yeah. I mean, you could substitute the aliens for just Russians, and
right? Exactly. Anything.
You know, and any war.
But it's a futuristic world.
Yeah. But I loved XCOM Enemy Unknown. I do at some point need to buy the expansion pack that they sold on a separate disc for some reason for the 360, which is Enemy Within, and play through that. But I mean, like, I will gladly pay full price for XCOM.
Yeah, like Enemy Unknown was kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Like everyone loved it when it came out, but like it was, you know, a remake of an older game. They also did another side shoot that wasn't as successful.
The Bureau.
Yeah.
But that they changed that to a third person
shooter,
squad shooter, where you could give orders to your two teammates and they could die and it's permadeath, but at the same time it's third person cover based shooter.
Right.
So it's like, well, I don't really care.
Yeah. But one of the things they announced for this game too is something they're calling like procedurally created levels.
Yeah.
So instead of randomly generated levels, it's basically they said with the randomness it wasn't fun because you might get, you know, really all bad cover, or there might be too much space between you and the enemy, like where you can't even, or there's like a bridge super far away that you can't get to. So instead they created this sort of modular idea where it's like, okay, this area is going to have a base, or this area is going to have cover, but it's only one of these two covers because if we give you a trash can right here, you're probably going to die every time.
Yeah.
So like, even though it's randomly generated, it's following strict rules, so it's still going to be playable. They said with the last game is even though they created 80 levels, it wasn't enough for the people that played a lot.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you think, at least I know you didn't play Enemy Unknown, right? You'd get into a level and you kind of knew the layout immediately.
Yeah.
Just upon seeing like the background, and it'd be like, oh, okay, I know that this is a base that I'm infiltrating, so I know like there's going to be this big circular base right in the middle, and it's going to have these 4 rooms and whatever. And just like the only randomness that I found most of the time is just enemy placement.
Yeah.
And so like the
that's what they was, because they did hand create maps in the last game.
So it's just like you said there's like 80 maps, and I was just like, oh, that does not seem right. It seems like there was 5.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, yeah, this new idea of just like, okay, now we're actually going to kind of give you an idea of what the map is going to be, and we know if there's going to be cover here, and we know if there's going to be something here. It's like, yeah, maybe that'll get old too, playing the same maps over and over again. I imagine it would, but at the same time, like I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, just for me though, I wonder like how it's going to affect achievements, especially if it was completely random.
Yeah.
Like you might get really screwed over on a bad level.
Yeah.
And that might throw off your entire game up into that point, if it's depending on what the achievements are.
The good news is
no achievements.
that it is only announced for the PC.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure eventually it's going to come out.
Eventually.
And it might have Steam achievements that I know you don't care about. But just the idea of playing something that could be so random, it makes it harder to implement those structures of achievements, those criteria.
I agree, because you can't just have, like, you know...
Go a game without dying or something like that. You know?
Well, especially, you just get dropped in randomly, and then you're like, oh, fuck. You know? But there's 10 guys around me, all have grenades. They're all just standing there, ready to throw. And you're just like, oh, well, there goes that style. But I will say, any of the game announcements that I've heard
so far
E3,
this
is the one I am most excited for.
It's funny you should say that because the other game we were going to talk about that was announced was Fallout 4.
Yeah, but I'm still saying I'm more XCOM than Fallout 4.
Is it because XCOM's going to be more of a sure thing? You know exactly what it's going to be?
No, I think what it is
you just really like the gameplay.
The gameplay. I mean, like, like those games I found are now
the
isometric, whatever strategy board game,
turn-based.
You want to call them. Like those, I've played. Everyone I've played, I've found some redeeming merit that makes me addicted to it, even if it's not the best. The Fallout 4, I know is going to be good. It's going to be like an A. It's just I think XCOM is going to be an A+, so that it's really. I'm going to get both.
Yeah.
It's more of just like I think XCOM, and especially like the first one, I was able to keep restarting it and enjoying it because it'll just be like different difficulties, or I'm going to start at different maps, or I'm going to name my characters this time after my friends and see which ones die.
Yeah.
Like that, I feel like the replayability immediately goes up for that game. Where Fallout 4 is going to be, it's going to be a one-time game.
Right, and it certainly gives you a different experience. And XCOM is more a smaller, self-contained, like, hey, I can have fun playing this for 10 minutes and I'm going to get a complete experience.
Yeah.
We're like, Fallout's going to be like, okay, I'm going to play this game for 100 hours over weeks or months or a year or whatever, and it'll be a fun, satisfying experience. But it might be, if I play it for 10 minutes, those 10 minutes I might just be running through the desert and not even see anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like there might just be like I'm getting from one quest to the start of another quest for a half hour and get sidetracked or whatever it is. Where XCOM, like you said, like sit down and be like, I can at least get one battle in.
Yeah.
Because those are, fast 10, 20-minute things. So yeah, I agree that, in short terms, in short bursts, XCOM's has more life than Fallout. I think they're probably going to be equal. I'm probably going to spend the same amount of hours in both. If Fallout 4 is like a 100-hour game, I can easily put 100 hours into XCOM. I did that with the first one. So that's not the issue. Like the length, it'll just be, I don't know. I'm more into the isometric than I am into the shooters. So that'll work.
And the combat system in Fallout, we've talked about it a little bit, isn't super great.
No, and that's what I think will be interesting to see what kind of legs this one has, because if they make it more of a traditional shooter,
like if you can shoot from the hip rather than using the VATS,
that'll kind of be interesting. And if they do it well, then it'll be great. Or if it's still kind of broken and they still have VATS. VATS was a lot of fun. I used VATS all the time, and it's cool
there's no
to
problem
shoot off
with VATS, but
parts.
there was a problem with just shooting from the hip or aiming while you're using your gun. Like if you didn't use VATS, it was helpless.
Yeah, unless you, like, the thing was on top of you and you just had a shotgun and you could just shoot into its stomach, that's great. But
it's just you needed a scorpion trying to grab your heels.
Yeah, but you needed VATS if, like, there were guys with guns shooting at you, because there's no way that you're gonna just pop them off from a distance.
Yeah. But let's talk about the trailer itself.
Okay.
So they released a couple-minute trailer. It seemingly was used all in-game footage. It was all actual in-engine stuff, and basically it's hard exactly to say what the story was in the trailer, other than it showed the same location in two different time periods. One, I guess, before the nuclear bomb, which was probably not going to be playable. That was probably just for the trailer. And then one, afterwards, after the nukes have gone off, because if you don't know, the Fallout franchise takes place in the future in like a post-nuclear apocalypse setting. So you're in one of these vaults that are underground that you come out of, and then you come out to the world and see what has changed or what's going on. And
at least Fallout 3 for sure, and I know Fallout 2 was like you pretty much lived your life. You were born.
Yeah, Fallout 3, you were born inside one of the vaults.
Yeah, so it's like you came out because it was just one of those things where just like, well, and something big happened in the vault, and then it's just you escape. Or it's one of those things where I think in like Fallout 2, like you have people in the vault who are still living in the vault that need you to like go out and get some medical supplies, and then you go out for the first time and you're just like, oh, holy shit, like this isn't...
like a lot of the times the people that live in the vault, certainly the people that grew up in the vault, don't know if outside is even livable.
Yeah.
Like each little vault, because you do go to multiple vaults usually in the games, it has their own story.
Yeah,
like their own community, their own ecosystem. Like everything about these vaults is very unique. That's why it's fun to explore.
Yeah.
But like in Fallout 3, like you were born there at the beginning of the game is you growing up in the vault, which is such a great sequence too.
Yeah, because it plays super quick.
Yeah, like you take this weird test that actually like it changes how you turn out, but it's kind of fun and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
so much, like, just thinking about Fallout 3, so much of it was so good. Like you said, like, exploring the vaults, like, there weren't even missions that, like, well, at least not that I found, that specifically task you with going in these. You just stumble upon them and you go in, and then you just learn so much. Like, I remember one vault was just all the talented musicians. Like, I remember there's just musical instruments everywhere, and you read about just, like, all of these, like, super uber talented, like, musicians to create, you know, whatever, some super musician race, I guess. But just, like, that's weird, like, a whole vault of just people, like, playing violin and all this stuff, and just, like, okay, that's...
Or you go into one and, like, there's all these dead bodies and stuff because there was some sort of mutiny or, like, you know, there was, like, a class struggle and things like that. Just, like I said, each one of them has their own little story.
Yeah, and they were great. And that's one thing, like, I know that Fallout 4, like, the world building is going to be crazy. Like, you're going to be able to just explore and find out bits and pieces about wherever you are, and that's going to be the most interesting stuff. Like, the main quest line in Fallout 3, to me, forgettable.
Yeah.
Okay, you find your dad, yip-de-doo-da day.
Right.
Like, you're trying to, make drinkable water was the big thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, that's noble. But, like, the main quest...
That was just a way to get the story going. It wasn't... Yeah, it was all about exploring the world.
Yeah, but, like, taking, like, a side quest and then you just happen to stumble upon, like, it's a talking tree.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, yeah, I'm on to this. What's going on here? Or, you know, going into a random vault and, like you said, like, there's a bunch of dead bodies and you're trying to investigate, like, okay, what happened here? Did they have anything good?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm still super excited for Fallout 4. I think it's going to be great. And it could be a good couple... Well, I know XCOM comes out this year. November is when it's slated.
Yeah. Supposedly Fallout 4 is also because it has... You can already pre-order it, and there's already deals you can find online for it. The day it was announced, you could find like 25% off somewhere.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So this Christmas is going to be a
Yeah.
Good Christmas.
But just going back to the trailer itself, so there's like a German Shepherd that's going through these abandoned buildings and stuff, and then it flashes back to before the bombs, and it's like, you know, happy nuclear 50s style families living there. And I think a lot of people were talking about the graphics of the game, how it wasn't super great. And I think the actual setting, I mean, in general, the Fallout games have never been graphically great because there's such a huge open world, and I think it's because of the tools they use to create all these things is like, okay, if it's lower res and it's, you know, the character models aren't great, it's easier for me to come up with 1,000 characters and 100 miles worth of stuff because I can just quickly put things together, and it's interesting. The level design's good, and like they put so much into story and dialogue and stuff that the graphics aren't there.
Which I'm fine with.
I'm fine with that too.
If this turns out that it doesn't look like the top of the line game, but it still plays great, I am a human being who's willing to sacrifice graphics for that kind of positive on the other side.
But since last Fallout game has happened, they've partnered with like id and stuff, and they've gotten that other graphical engine that they use for like Rage and everything.
Yeah.
And that was such a big deal because it was such a great engine, and it was able to do that huge open world, and it was able to just, as an example, like it could create an entire mountain range, and every rock and every cliff face would be completely different. There was no two things in the world that were exactly the same because of the way that it was generated, like randomly generated stuff. And so when we played Rage, it was always like a fun thing, like, hey, Fallout with these graphics would be amazing. Like, that would be great. And that was kind of the promise.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if they used that engine. It looks like they might have because they've released still screenshots since then. And if you go back and look at the trailer and just look at the environment, it does look similar to Rage. Especially there's this little, like, shanty town you can go into. It looks very similar to like the hub world in Rage.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that the graphics for the character models aren't great, and especially for the trailer, is it was like a close up on that dog the whole time, and the dog didn't look super great. He did not look like a current gen or high end PC sort of game.
No, he didn't. And there's only so much that you can hide with the fact that where you're just like, oh well, it's dusty, it's post-apocalyptic dust,
right?
You know,
yeah,
so
you can't have dark shadows everywhere.
But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the best to talk about this because I could technically go back and play a Nintendo 64 game and completely forget about the graphics. But I understand that in the world of having Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and the other point is like, we should also be at a point as consumers where graphics aren't the only thing that's driving us forward. And that's, like, you think about, I don't know, this is, you know, old age talking, but like, when you had systems like, you know, NES and Super NES and Nintendo 64, it was never just like, this is the best graphically looking game. And I feel like that's 90% of what it is like new games are just like, no, this one looks the best.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with when they announce things and they show screenshots and all that stuff, because that's all you have to look at. That's all you have to compare.
Yeah.
It's totally a visual thing. Like, you don't get to sit down and play the game.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can really comment on is, hey, how many polygons are in this picture?
Yeah, well, like, I think, and this is getting slightly kind of off topic, but like Witcher 3 came out.
Yeah.
Everyone loved it that's played it, except people were just like, it looks like you downgraded the graphics.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, well, probably the CG trailers and the trailers we showed, and you know, for big presses, of course we upped the res because we didn't have to, you know, do draw distance 10 billion miles,
and we also didn't have to deal with people's other machines and things like that. It was like, okay, this is the best. Usually it's like, this is the bar we're aiming for.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can hit it. But because they put all the resources of the machine into just one cutscene, it always looks better.
But like, people who are like, you know, want their money back and like condemning, you know, these people are just like, everything I've heard about that game is that this game is great and everyone should play it. And it's got a great story and all the quests are really thought out. Yeah. But the fact that there's still people who are just like, I was promised a game that looks better than this. It's just like,
there's always going to be those people.
Yeah. It's like, well, fucking, you know what? This game wasn't for you.
Right. I mean, definitely Fallout would not be a game that I would buy for the graphics, for sure. And I'm going to buy it anyways, even if it looks awful.
Yeah.
But maybe it would just be nice.
Maybe they got a Kickstarter where they're going to do the N64 filter, like Ukulele.
Right.
So they just kind of made everything
not as great.
Very polygonal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, everyone knew that this game was being worked on.
Yeah.
Or hoped, at least, that this game was being worked on. And we finally have an announcement. And good on them that, A, they kept the secret for so long. And if it does come out this year, like, to have an announcement for a game of this magnitude,
this close to release,
that's this close to release, normally you're like, oh, they announced it, we'll play it in 2017. It's like, but no, like, announced it, Christmas.
Yeah.
You can play it. It's like, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's how it should be. I mean, ideally that's how it would be, but because of the way the industry works now, you have to really announce way ahead of time. Also, it's set in Boston.
Yeah,
which is such a minor point, but I mean, how do you feel about the setting? I mean, the setting for me for these games never really matter. Like, DC was cool.
That was the third one, right?
Yeah, third one was DC. Vegas was obviously
Fallout
Vegas.
New Vegas, yeah.
So Boston, like, that's fine.
Everyone better have that accent.
Everyone.
I don't want a character
or a ghoul,
or ogre, or mutant that doesn't
have a rad scorpion.
The Boston accent. Rad scorpion should have a Boston accent sound effect.
I was just gonna say, like, the settings, you know, they don't really matter to me. The only time that I think it would matter if it was like Chicago, where I would recognize the buildings or the skyline. Because other than that, the actual setting of it doesn't really matter. It could be any place because it's basically been turned into a desert wasteland.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, if you told me that this took place in DC, the third one, having never been to DC, I wouldn't recognize anything unless there's a giant monument.
Right, it's not like they recreated the town like some other games do.
Yeah, so it's like, this is set in Boston. Yeah, that's cool, but again, just like, am I going to go to Fenway Park or something like that?
Yeah.
Is that going to be where the mission starts?
Right.
like I said, like the only thing that it could influence is give me some sweet
Sweet.
Boston accents.
Yeah.
Fuck the guy.
Yep.
I don't know how to do an accent.
Do you think they're gonna do actual synced dialogue, or is it gonna be text based again?
I don't know. I feel like it can't be text based anymore.
Right.
I think it's
so
one of those
behind
things
the
where
times.
it's just like if it was a smaller studio, you can get away with it. You can be like, hey, we only got 20 people on the team. We're doing text based.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Fallout 4. It's a major production that you can't do just text.
It just seems like, going back to the graphics thing, that it's the way they did the text-based dialogue is a lot easier for somebody to just write the dialogue and program it in than to actually then record it and pay somebody and all this other, sync it. So hopefully they do it. But because they cut corners on some other things to sort of keep the way the older games were, Because, it'd be great if you could come up with 1,000 missions because they're all text-based and the graphics are awful.
Yeah.
But like, it's Fallout. It's not a small game.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's that balance.
Yeah.
It's just like, you have to still bring it into this century. Like, you can't just be like, hey, it's Fallout 3 but new storyline. Yeah, that's cool. Like,
Right.
I'll play it.
Yeah, I'll play it.
But
I won't be as happy.
You'll
as
still
if-
get my
yeah.
money, but at the same time, like, you need to have voice acting for a good percentage of the characters. If you don't want to do it for all of them, it's fine. Maybe there's characters that just walk around
that are mute. There's a whole mute race now.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm just trying to think, like, because sometimes it bothers me on the other end when you have so many NPCs and you can tell if there's only like 10 voice actors for the whole game.
They just
and you
keep
talking
repeating everything.
to like 5, generic males, and they all sound, like, go to the river. They all say the exact same thing, and you're just like, but you're 5 different people. Like, that's also the other extreme where it's just like, I'd almost prefer you just didn't have voices for these characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, like, if you're gonna have 100 characters, I'm sure you're not gonna hire 100 voice actors. But I don't know. It's a balance where it's just like, it still has to have voice acting. Fallout 3 had some. I mean, it had Liam Neeson, was your dad.
Yep.
It had,
No, it had some pretty decent names.
Yeah. Ron Perlman.
Yeah, of course.
Making his debut for the 500th time.
And introducing Ron Perlman.
I wish more things did that.
Yeah.
Introducing, and then just this big name person.
All right. So you playing any games right now?
I have more news.
Oh, fine. Okay.
Jesus.
Wow.
Mary and Joseph.
Yeah.
Steam, the other system that you left off, has instituted a refund policy for the first time ever. Normally,
I predict disaster. Not knowing any information about how it's going to work.
Oh yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Initially, if you bought a game off their big platform, and it didn't work, maybe your PC couldn't run it, or you hated it, or whatever, it was just like, you can email them, and maybe, just maybe,
if they happen to look at it.
And you weren't like a crying teenager, maybe they'd give you like Steam points to be redeemed for another game.
Yeah.
But now they have a refund policy. The rules are that you have to have played the game less than 2 hours. So
people aren't just going to buy games, play it real quick, and then say, hey, I want a refund because I finished it.
Yeah, so if you get a game, Witcher 3, you can't put 100 hours in the first 2 days and then just be like, oh, no, this game's not for me. I think there's also going to be some things where, like, achievement-wise, you can't have, like, the achievement that says, like, I beat the game or something like that.
Because then they know.
That you played it. But then you're able to... If you qualify, I think there's some other rules in there, then you can request a refund, and then they will give it to you. The issue that a lot of people are bringing up is indie games that aren't 2 hours long.
Right.
Like, technically, Thomas Was Alone, you could probably get through, like, in an hour and a half. And I don't think there's an achievement for beating the game. I think it's all, like, finding secrets kind of issue. So you could play it for an hour and a half, beat it, and then say, like, oh, I didn't like this game, and then essentially you just played a game for free, got money back, and then the other argument is just like they don't understand where the refund money is going to come from.
Yeah,
it's going
are
to
they
come
going
from
to take
the
it away?
developers
Yeah,
that or maybe independent studios that are just like, we can't offer 20 refunds because people don't like this game.
Right. Also, they probably spend the money as soon as they get it because they
Yeah.
need to pay people.
And so they're also like, but we also know that it's not going to be Valve that's just pumping out all of this money for games that they're not responsible for.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of hang-ups, but they're going forward with it, and it's...
Yeah, I think they're going to have those general overarching rules.
Yeah.
Plus, they're going to be like, hey, or, subset if the game's under 2 hours, or like it's a percentage of gameplay total, and, they'll probably they'll have to be like a licensing agreement now every time you play one of the newer games. Be like, hey, if you want a refund, you have to hit these points.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it'll be tough, though, to monitor, I think, because so many games are so different.
It's a lot more work for them.
Yeah, they're just like, first, if you just have these blanket statements, that's great, but then you, like you said, like any game that's like less than 2 hours or whatever, doesn't have achievements or something like that, then those games are immediately people buying them and refunding them like right after they beat it.
Yeah.
Like it sounds great for your big AAA games. You're not going to play through Fallout 4 in 2 hours. You're not going to get a refund for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like these little independent games that like a 2-person studio comes out with, and it's really
that's what's going to hurt them. Like refunds could completely
destroy,
bankrupt that company, and it's the big guys that it wouldn't affect. So
exactly, like you think like I don't know, me and you come out with a game. We're 2 guys. We like
number crunching number puncher,
and then 100 people get refunds on it out of 200 people that bought it.
Right.
And we've already spent, that money to start developing Number Cruncher Number Puncher 2.
Right, or to pay our employees that we hadn't been paying until the game came out.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, bankruptcy.
Right.
And
also, I'm sure they're going to monitor, too, like how often somebody requests a refund.
Yeah, they said, like, they would start... That was one of the things is that they're going to monitor people for who might be abusing the system. So obviously, like, if this is your 10th game you're asking for a refund on in, 2 weeks, chances are you aren't getting a refund. Yeah,
but at the same time, people, I think, that are like that would probably be willing to just create a new account every single week and then never pay for a game.
The thing is, there's so many loopholes. Yeah. If there's people who are that determined to not spend money, which there are always people determined to not spend money.
Right.
There's loopholes where it's just like, this is like a free rental. Even if you wanted to be like, I don't know if Witcher 3 is for me.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat the game, but you can play it for an hour and 59 minutes or whatever the cutoff is, and then just be like, yeah, okay, I like that, so I will be fine paying for it.
Yeah.
Or it's hour 59, and you're like, nah, it wasn't for me.
Right.
Give the game back.
How does it work, too, with your refunds? Does it delete your game save or anything? Because if not, you could keep using the same game save and then, like I said, create a new account or something and keep slowly playing Witcher 3 over 40 segments.
I think the game, people with computers would be smart enough to, move things around, but I imagine it's tied to your profile. In addition to the refund news, Steam consoles are officially on sale.
Woo!
And they have released their prototype controller.
For the 18,000th time. The newest of the controllers.
Well, they actually released it.
Okay.
Before it was always in talks.
But they were releasing dev versions of it.
Yeah. But now it's officially available for retail.
Their final version of the controller for now.
I'm interested. I will probably get one.
Just to try it out, to see how it plays.
Try it out, because apparently, the big promise of that is that you can now take games that are mouse and keyboard specific and play them with a controller.
Yeah.
So I could still technically sit on my couch and play a game like, Divinity Original Sin, or I could play Massive Chalice, and what would normally be... Well, Massive Chalice now is controller-based, but, games like that where now I can sit back and, one... thumb pad essentially controls the mouse, and the other one is to bring up keyboard. I still don't know really how it works.
It's going to be a new skill you have to learn.
Yeah.
But in theory, it's easier, it's more casual, but still has all the functionality of a keyboard.
Yeah. But what I think is funny is, their big announcement, one of the systems was the Alienware Alpha, which I already have, and even the people at Alienware said, this is the same console we released last year.
Yeah.
It's just now it has the Steam operating system, and it comes with a Steam controller.
Which is you could get on your own anyways.
Yeah, you can buy, on the bottom of my system is a place to put, the operating system,
Yep.
like whatever USB or disk, whatever it's going to be, and it just pops in, and then you convert it into which I'm not going to do.
There's no reason to, because you have the functionality of all that stuff, and you use Steam and everything. It's like, okay, whether if I just like the Steam UI all the time, then I could do that, but it seems more limited than what you have now.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like I feel like, well, that's what I think it is. I think it's like buying the Steam box is like buying an Xbox One or PlayStation 4. Like, it's just a dedicated game box.
Yeah.
While this, like, yes, I technically bought a Steam box because it runs Steam and it sits in my living room. But, like, now that I'm getting used to it, it's like, no, wait, I enjoy having functionality of using the internet, checking my email. Yeah. And I'm sure maybe those things can do it too in, like, the Steam UI or whatever. But it's just one of those things where just like, yeah, I don't think I need the upgrade. I will just get the controller. I will... Hopefully that can work without the operating system.
It's got to. If not, it's a huge failure on their part.
And see if I can actually run the games and play it, like, efficiently. Because that would, I think, be, like... To me, that would be the biggest... Like, I don't want to say revelation, but that's the only way that's coming to my head. Is just being like, if I can sit and play these complicated games that usually I'm too lazy to dig out my keyboard and mouse, like, I got 45 minutes, as opposed to just always playing like Rogue Legacy or something like that. I can just be like, I'm gonna pop in Civilization, and I got the controller, and I'm right here, and I can do everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect for the more casual fan or the people coming over from the consoles.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a overlap there is, though, because it seems like the people that play those hardcore games with mouse and keyboard are only going to play with mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't know how much migration there has been from consoles back to PC, but for those people, it's great. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's still the market, too, for a Steam box, because it's more a casual, dedicated video game system rather than having a huge, gaming PC that you build yourself.
Yeah, because there's always that distinction. There's the people who are just like, Steam boxes are the dumbest idea ever. I can build a better gaming PC for half the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, buy every part individually, hammer it together.
Hopefully they're, compatible. Yeah,
hopefully they're, like, whatever. Like, I've read stories of people who swear up and down that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm as much of a nerd as I am. I can't be that big of a nerd.
Yeah.
I can't research individual parts and then spend the time
and constantly second guess every decision you make.
Every decision. And then like solder together a PC.
And then find out that the game you want to play can't even run on that graphics card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know what? If I'm a loser and I waste my money, whatever. But give me something that's already put together that all I gotta do is plug in and then download a game and dust my hands and be like, yeah, your game PC might last 5 years while mine's only going to last 2.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I save time. It's like changing your own oil versus going to Jiffy Lube.
Exactly.
Just like, yeah, okay, I'm an idiot. I'm paying the extra $15 at Jiffy Lube, but guess what I'm doing there? Reading a magazine and looking at my phone while my shit gets done.
Yeah.
As opposed to spend an entire Saturday deciding where to dispose of oil without getting arrested.
We want to take this time to thank our sponsor, Jiffy Lube.
Yeah. You can get an oil change for $14.95 if you mention the word
Phil.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's all my news.
That's all your news?
Yeah, I think
Got through it all?
Yeah.
All right. Are you playing anything right now?
Yeah.
You just don't want to share it?
No, I mean I'm playing. Well, okay. Let me preface this.
Okay, as usual.
Actually, I got two things. For games, yes, I'm playing things. We are going to talk. I'm playing Massive Chalice.
Yeah.
And more Life is Strange. We are going to have.
I don't think we should tease that.
We shouldn't.
No.
You sure?
Well, especially if it comes in like 2 weeks or something. Yeah. Depending on what happens.
But like, if people want to play the games ahead of.
Okay.
When we talk about them.
True enough.
So then
go ahead.
We talk about them. Yeah. So the two games that I've spent a lot of time playing recently
that we've actually both played. So
is Massive Chalice and Life is Strange.
Yep.
But what we want to do is we want to do a spoiler-heavy, in-depth discussion with these two games.
Right. Not a lot of spoilers per se for the Massive Chalice aspect, but we will be talking in depth about it. So if you're familiar, it's good.
It might not be next week. It might be 2 weeks down the road, depending on when we decide to do our E3 episode. But if you want to play those games, and then in 2 weeks when we talk about them, we're not ruining the entire plot,
Right.
or you kind of have an idea what we're talking about, then we're gonna do that on a separate episode.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. Also, tied into that, second preface, Chris doesn't know about this. I'm going to spring this on him.
Yeah.
Is I like that idea of us having a dedicated episode for a game.
Yeah.
That I was thinking of putting the idea out to the fans to request, all two fans, to request a game for us to play. And here are the quick rules.
Okay.
One, it has to be a game that is readily available.
On Xbox or PC or
Xbox, PC, PlayStation 3, whatever, Super Nintendo emulator, something like that we can get a hold of it and play it. It can't be like you've got to play, Giant Pandas, the Japan-only Dreamcast game. Yeah, it's like, okay, can't do it. Two, and this you fans won't know, but it can't be a game that one of us has played very recently. Like, if you request, hey, I'd like you guys to play the Old Blood, it's like you've played that in the past, 2 months. Yeah. There's no point in us playing that. And then three, if it is if it's a game we have to buy, there's a price point.
Yeah.
Don't go over $50.
Yeah. And
those are still do we want to spend $50?
And if it is $50, it better be a good game.
It better be a good game. But tweet us at NotFunPodcast or email us at thisisn'tfunnymorepodcast@gmail.com. I'm limiting everyone gets 3 suggestions. We will put everything into a hat.
Yep.
We will draw one out at random. We will have 1 month.
Put everything in the official This Isn't Funny Anymore podcast hat.
Yep, the official hat.
Sponsored by Jiffy Lube.
Jiffy Lube.
It's a Jiffy Lube hat.
Yeah. And then we will give ourselves 1 month to play through the game, and then we'll have a whole episode talking about that game.
In depth.
How does that sound to you?
Sounds great. If we can pull it off, it sounds great.
Yeah. So, hopefully, and people can give us old games, especially games that we can quote-unquote emulate, even though I have all the original copies.
Yeah, I don't know what this word emulate means.
But, if you want us to play through a Nintendo 64 game, Super Nintendo game, you want us to play through Tomb Raider, whatever it's going to be.
Those discussions will probably be shorter than a newer game.
Yes. The length we will do. Here's what I was thinking, and this will be the last part of the topic.
A lot of rules to this.
Is that if it's a short game, if you give us DuckTales on normal Nintendo, we might pick 2 games. We might do DuckTales and whatever, some other short game, Bushido Blade for PlayStation, and then we have 2 games. We'll spend half the time talking about them, as opposed to if you give us Lost Odyssey, which you don't because I've recently played it, but it's a 4-disc 100-hour JRPG.
Yeah.
That's probably going to take us the full month to get through it, and that might have enough just be 1 game.
Right.
But okay, games I'm playing.
But actually, sorry to cut you off again, but right before that, so just a reminder, if you want to play Massive Chalice, it's available on PC. It has been for a little bit. Also, it's free right now on Xbox One.
Yep.
So if you got an Xbox One, you might as well download it.
Yeah, for free.
For free, and if you play it, even better, because then you'll know what we're talking about next week.
Yep, and whatever. Life is Strange is PC as well,
and
PS4,
Xbox, and PS4,
and Xbox 360 and Xbox One.
I believe so, yes.
I don't know if it's PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. I haven't checked, but I imagine it's one of those.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
But yeah, we will just be doing the first 2 chapters of Life is Strange.
Yeah.
So you have 1 to 2 weeks to play 2 chapters of Life is Strange and Massive Chalice if you want to get the most out of that episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Games that I'm playing that aren't those 2 games, I don't have a lot to talk about.
That's fine.
Basketball, I've started a whole new season.
Basketball.
I've also been playing, we've been playing more Ghostbusters. We're almost done with the online of Ghostbusters.
Thank God.
Which, the game is fun. We've talked about that. It's an actually good designed online multiplayer game.
Yeah, the gameplay is great.
The biggest problem is just how flaky the developers were when they programmed achievements. Where we're just we don't know how to get this one. We have to try 200 different times.
Yeah, the only thing that you have going in your favor is the fact that you didn't play this when the game came out.
Yeah,
and I did, and I played it a lot. So at least so far, at least 2 out of the 4 achievements that I was going for, I cannot get.
Yeah,
they're unobtainable for me.
Yeah,
because I already met the requirements 9 years ago when this game came out.
And the game doesn't register.
And they didn't come out with a patch for almost 2 years until after that.
Yeah.
So,
but also is that some people are even though this game has been patched, there is
Still don't
no
know.
guarantee
Yeah.
that you won't have an achievement glitch on you.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, like, I'm just going to say that's it. I'm going to save my game talk for when we talk specifically Chalice and Life is Strange.
All right, cool. So then I will give my semi-final. I never want to be too completist about this, but my latest entry in the Destiny Corner talk.
Okay.
Do you have any preference of what I talk about? I gave you that option last time and then ignored it.
Well, then, well, we did competitive last time.
We did competitive. So
let's go co-op.
So the last feature, the last main feature to talk about is the competitive arena base shooter, which is called Prison of Elders.
Yep.
So basically what it is you go to this area. There's this prison that has all the bad guys in it that have been captured by one of the factions, oh god, what's their name? So the Fallen, who's sort of the bad guy that you're tracking down in the new DLC, is one of their houses. They have a bunch of different houses. There's House of Wolves, which is what it's named after, which is, you know, the one that sort of went rogue and broke away.
Yep.
Then there's also like House of Devils, which you fight early on in the game. That's the first faction you fight. And then there's like House of Kings and House of Judgment are the ones that control the Prison of Elders.
Okay.
And so there's this one fallen character that you deal with in the storyline. He's like on your side and giving you information that I talked about before. He's like the warden of this prison. So he throws you in there, and you're just in this airlock, and there's 4 doors, and each door represents one of the enemy types in the game, the enemy races. And you can tell what they are based on, like, you know, the Cabal. There's like a shield there for like the Vex. It's all like machinery around it, so like you can know visually what they are. And then there's 5 rounds. You go into one of these rooms, and you beat essentially 3 main waves of enemies, and then you go back to the airlock and do it again. So there's 3.
How many? There's 3 waves.
3
in each
waves,
room.
5 rounds.
Okay, so that's 15. Essentially, let's say matches per room.
Right. And so it's like,
how long does each room take? Then?
Like total. Well, it's really hard to say because so I'll just walk you through like a game basically. So you get there, you're in there. He's like, okay, first enemy you fight is going to be the Vex. Go fight the Vex. And so the door opens up. You go down this long hallway. Then another door opens up, and it's this huge circular arena with different things set up, and it's all based on like the Vex, so it looks like it would be, you know, in one of their levels.
Okay.
And so it's like I said, it's mainly circular, and then for the Vex especially, there's a sort of almost like a stage in the middle that has this big teleporter, and that's where a lot of them come from. Plus there's side doors, and there's, you know, things you can jump on, there's things you can hide behind, but there's no obvious camping spots. Like that's their whole thing, is they want you to sort of not be able to just sit down and camp and have enemies come at you.
There's not supposed to be like that much cover either.
Right.
Yeah.
There's cover, so you're not constantly getting shot because they throw so many enemies at you. If they didn't give you a wall here and there to hide behind, you would always die. But also, if you're hiding behind a wall, that means there's probably like a door behind you that enemies could also come through. And in the level, they're scattered those little proximity mines that I talked about before.
Yep.
So if you get close to one, it sort of pops up. It's a little sphere that starts spinning, and if you don't shoot it in time, it creates this stasis web that slows you down. It doesn't affect the enemies, but it slows you down, so you basically get caught in this net temporarily, and they can just shoot you a bunch. So that's another thing that you have to worry about as you're traversing the level. Then before that though, he gives you there's different modifiers for every level. So it might be like
falling skulls.
No, yeah, I wish. So to play off this sort of other horde modes that Bungie's done in the past, like Firefight was all about the modifiers, because it was basically the same thing over and over. Like you'd have a bunch of waves, then you'd have like a boss wave or something, but it was all about like throwing crazy modifiers at you.
Yeah.
The modifiers for this is some of them you had used before when you do like the weekly missions and strikes and stuff. They give you modifiers, but there's like a whole new set of ones. So there's those plus new ones. You know, it might be like, oh, like solar damage does more, or oh, you take more damage when you're in the air. or like you're super.
It'd be bad for me because I'm always jumping.
And they're sort of like randomly put together. So one is you do more damage when you're in the air, and there's another one where you take more damage when you're in the air, and we got both of this at the same time once. So it's like you could jump, you could do a lot of damage, but you're also taking damage, so you had to like really strategically decide that. Sometimes it's like, like, oh, your secondary weapons do more damage. So all all those sort of crazy things. Then when you're actually in the rounds doing stuff, he'll randomly throw secondary objectives at you. So you might, be trying to kill all these enemies. You're dealing with the proximity mines on the ground. And then also it's like, okay, kill this target before it reaches the checkpoints, or dismantle this bomb before it blows all of you guys up. So there'll be like 3 areas that it'll spawn at across the map, and you have to run to those areas and deal with that while you're also dealing with these other things, while you're also traversing the mines.
Are the secondary objectives are they all like, if you fail them, you fail this level?
Yes.
So they're not really secondary.
Right. They're secondary in the term that like it's not about killing the enemies for them. I mean, there was the one that I talked about, but it's like, okay, you're doing these other things, and then like, okay, while you're doing that, also do this for a little bit. Okay. So once you complete those, the round's not over.
Yeah, because then you still
have to kill all the enemies and stuff. And sometimes they throw secondary objectives at you while you're like fighting bosses and stuff, and that's when it gets a little crazy. And so you do 3 waves, 3 main waves. I mean, when I say wave, I don't mean like, okay, an enemy came out of this door, that counts as a wave. It means like there's like designated time periods. You still get like waves within those waves, if that makes sense. But it's like,
I think like that's most games you think about when that have that kind of these wave horde mode stuff. Yeah. It's not just like, okay, one door opens and 20 guys run out and that's a wave. It's just like, this match is going to have...
This wave takes place over like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah, this wave has got 40 people and they're going to come out of, all of the doors, but not just like in one chunk.
Yeah. Also, he randomly will give you bonuses like, hey, you guys did well that round, so here's heavy ammo. So now you can like recharge your rocket launcher. Like there'll be a little, ammo crate in the middle, and for like something like 2 minutes of the next round, you'll be able to keep going and refilling your rockets if you want. Or he'll give you like a scorch cannon, things like that. Then there's also sub-bosses and main bosses that you have to fight. So sometimes the sub-boss will just be like a giant hive knight that you have to deal with, and he keeps spawning ogres or something like that. But what gets really interesting is like the main bosses. So there's different levels that you can do, as in like you can do like a level 28 Prison of Elders, which is random. You can do it 1,000 times a week if you want to. There's no turnover. Okay. But then there's a 32, 34, and 35 that you only get reset every week, like the other stuff. So you can do it multiple times. You just won't get the rewards. And those are designed, as in if you play it 3 times that week, it's gonna be the same 3 levels, the same 3 modifiers, all that sort of stuff. And those are a lot more intricate. Like sometimes, like last week, the level 34. Yeah, because they're not just
random. They're actually set up. Somebody behind it is just like, I know what I want to do here, here, and here.
Like out of the 5 waves, there was 3 sub bosses and 1 major boss, plus the other stuff that you had to deal with. And so like that was all different. Like that was different than just playing the normal, where it's like normal wave, maybe sub boss, maybe boss. So the level 35 too, which is a level above what you are. 34 is the max that you can be as a player. So everything's harder. Like they take a third as less damage. They do a third more damage to you. So it's harder. Plus, this is kind of a replacement for the raids. So like that's where it gets a little crazy, where they kind of add these other features into it. So the main boss, the final boss for the level 35 one, is Skolas, who was the guy that you were hunting down the entire story of the DLC. Okay. And at the end of it, instead of killing him, you capture him for the queen, so she can take him to the Prison of Elders. So when you are in the Prison of Elders, it's like his revenge sort of thing. So he gets to fight you now. But so he's this giant boss. He's got this huge rocket that he keeps shooting at you. Plus you have to deal with all the enemies that they're just constantly throwing at you. If you try to do damage to him, you won't really do anything, because there's this glowing eyeball that floats around that you have to kill. and if you kill that eyeball, you have 15 seconds where you can do damage to the boss.
Sounds great.
Sounds great?
I'm on board.
Now, on top of that, he also has a debuff that he gives to one of the players. So the boss can sort of curse one of the players, and it gives you a 30-second timer, and if it gets all the way down to 0, you die. But a teammate can take it away from you, and then it'll restart that timer for them at 30 seconds.
Okay.
But you can only pass it every 35 seconds, meaning that like the same two people can't just keep passing it back and forth. So you have to coordinate who's getting it and when, because they can't see the timer, only you can. So you can be like, hey, I got like 5 seconds, somebody needs to take this from me. So you have to keep passing around the debuff, otherwise you'll die. Plus you got to constantly be killing this eye to be able to do damage every 15 seconds. Plus there's thousands of enemies coming at you. And they throw in, you have to dismantle 6 bombs while this fight is going on.
You know what?
And they randomly show up in a level.
Turn off the system.
Yeah.
Like, that's too much.
Yeah. And so that it's kind of it kind of feels like a raid final boss because of that, because it's got all those crazy things that you have to deal with, all those other rules and stuff.
Did you beat it?
Yeah, I've beaten it. The thing is, and I've beaten it multiple.
Yeah,
I beat it with all my characters like every week. Like there's 3 weeks now. And what's interesting is like they've been rotating it, so like what was level 34 the first week is now like after that is like level 32. Like they keep rotating it, so everybody gets to play like, hey, I'm not super great, I'm not a level 34, I'm afraid to play the 34 one, so when it gets moved down you can try it. But like one of the first bosses too was this Vex boss. He's this giant Vex boss, but he's got this little hobgoblin that glows, and you have to kill him to get a jailbreak buff for 30 seconds. And then the boss will put you in these time bubbles where the enemies can shoot you, but you can't move, and it'll slowly leech away your health. So you have like 5 seconds to break the bubble, but only the person with the jailbreak buff can kill it. So you have to find this special goblin, kill him in the right time, and have your 30-second timer happen to overlap when he puts the time bubble on you. And like at the same time, like I said, there's like thousands of enemies, plus you have to be chipping away at this huge boss's health.
No, thank you.
So like that boss especially too, I don't know how to beat it. I'm not going to say it legitimately, but there's a method that people found how to beat Skolas boss that has sort of trickled down now in some of the other bosses. Basically is you have to find a way to kill the bosses in the first 30 seconds before all these crazy things start happening.
Yeah.
And so like if all 3 of you have Galahorn rockets, which is the most powerful gun of the game, plus you have boots that gives you extra rocket ammo, so you get 2 extra shots. If you have a heavy synth, which is something that you can a consumable that you can use that will refill your rockets. So basically, you can have 14 rockets. So what I'm going to tell you the strategy, not that you really care, but basically you run into the level as soon as the cutscene happens. When the boss happens, the Titan will throw up his little protective bubble, right? That has a buff that gives you more damage. So everybody shoots basically 21 rockets. Then they hide in the bubble, use their synth, so they have another 21 rockets, and they shoot all that. Usually 42 Galahorn rockets will kill the main boss. So that's the only way that people know how to beat him. Like nobody's done that legitimately, like actually like gone and done all the special things.
Yeah.
And you still have to eventually dismantle the 6 bombs, but now you're dealing with it without the boss and stuff.
Yeah, which is fine.
So let's say, you go through all the steps, you beat all the waves, you beat the final boss, then you go back to the airlock, the floor opens up, and it drops you way down, you pass all of these other cells and things like that, and you got to make sure that you can actually die from fall damage in this game, so you got to make sure. But when you get all the way to the bottom, there's this huge treasure room. It looks like something out of like Scrooge McDuck's Wet Dream. Like piles and piles of money. There's treasure chests all over the place. Then there's this long walkway, and at the end there's 3 chests you can open. 2 on either side that are smaller that you can just open whenever you want, every time you play it. And then there's this giant purple and gold like treasure chest, but you need a treasure key to open it. And to get the treasure keys, you have to have gotten it while doing other things in the game. Like I don't know if I told you before, those bounties where you randomly kill somebody and then you get that 90-second treasure key you got to go find. Sometimes you'll find treasure keys in there. Sometimes you'll get treasure keys as drops and other things. This game
just sounds too complicated.
It's super complicated, but it's fun. The problem is though, it's super like disheartening when you go through all this effort of playing all this stuff and getting to the final, treasure chest and not being able to open it because you don't have a key. Like, that's super frustrating.
Can you check your keys before?
Like, if you have keys.
Yeah.
And I've gotten actually keys from the 2 smaller chests on either side before, which was great. But if you open up this giant treasure chest, then you get like, exotic gear or weapons or all the good stuff's in there. You can still get decent stuff from the other things.
Yeah.
Also, it's interesting. So the guy that's the warden of this prison, he's also like every week he sells something. So he sells 1 piece of special gear and 1 special weapon that rotates every week. It's only been a few weeks, so I don't know how many there are in this. But if you beat like the level 32 one, you get an armor core, which allows you to buy 1 piece of armor from him. Or if you do the other one, you get like a weapon core, you can buy 1 weapon. And it's just interesting that the way they set it up, where you get these weekly drops when you play anyways, but also you can decide to like build your character because there's no like raid gear like there are.
Yeah.
You have the choice, like, hey, if you play this every week for a month, or you play this 4 times, you can probably get all the gear if it rotates properly. But you can only get 1 thing a week. So
it's kind of it's giving you a reason to keep.
It gives you a reason to keep playing, and it's cool. Like, all that stuff looks totally cool. It looks totally different. Plus, it gives you like perks for certain things. Like, hey, like I got a chess piece that gives me like more armor when I'm fighting the Hive in the Prison of Elders. That sort of stuff. Same thing like Trials of Osiris, the competitive stuff is he sells 1 piece of gear every week that you can get. Like, hey, if you get 5 wins, you can get this. Plus, you can randomly get it from the other packages and stuff. But like, you can know, like, hey, if I keep playing it, I can get all the gear. It's taken away the randomness of the drops that always happen. Plus, like with the raids, you could play it 50 times. And you could get 50 chess pieces or 50 boots. So you never know, or you could get nothing. You're not guaranteed getting stuff every time.
Yeah.
So it's sort of taken away that frustration of, hey, I don't know if I'm even going to get anything this week, or hey, I don't need any more boots. I got 50 pair of boots.
You always need more boots,
right? So I don't know. That's good. That's fun. It's one of those things where somebody said it best, where it's super fun to play, but it's hard to explain why, and it's not fun to watch somebody else play. Like, it's fine, but it's like, for whatever reason, the experience of playing is just harder to explain than if you just sat down and played it. Like, it sounds super complicated. It's not that complicated. Like, you'll get it once you play it, but it's just they implement these things so it's got replayability and it feels challenging like a raid. Even though you could be in the same room 5 times in theory, you're going to be doing completely different things, some of which are just batshit crazy.
Yeah, it sounds just super hectic, where it's just like, oh, there's hundreds of guys and a boss, and you have to dismantle a bomb, and there's also proximity mines. Oh, and by the way, there's also all these buffs and debuffs.
Yeah, those are just like the main bosses on the harder levels. Like, the first boss that you fight, if you're just doing like the 28 or the 32 or whatever, is like that guy that can keep changing his shields that I told you about. Like, hey, it's just a big cabal that sort of flies around, and if you shoot down a shield with, let's say, solar damage, the next time it comes on, it's going to have void damage or something. And so, like, that's super easy compared to the other stuff. So, like, even like the first week, the main boss for the 32 was like a giant knight that could spawn ogres. But every once in a while he would enrage and burn all the surfaces in there, so you couldn't be on the ground, so you would have to like jump up in the air so you wouldn't be like, you can't even like jump on a crate or something. Like, it just burns everything.
Yeah.
So like, that's something new and different, but it's not like super crazy with 5 different things that you have to figure out. But that's why people liked raids, was because there was all these crazy rules that you had to sort of trial and error your way through. And just like the first time, like when I played the first one with the Vex guy with the little goblin and stuff, like, we didn't know what was happening. Like, those little glowing goblins do not exist in the game normally, and we certainly didn't know that it was paired to like the jailbreak that was going to happen later on. So just playing through like that stuff, you have to play through a lot, but it's just fun.
I would not last very long.
Yeah. Also, I thought they really designed it well to implement each of the roles really well. Each of the different classes, like you got your hunter, your warlock, your titan, which is the human classes that you can play as. And so it's like the titan has a bubble that it can protect you from. So it's like he stops you from dying. If somebody does end up dying, the hunter can go invisible and either get to safety or circle back around and revive people once they can be revived. And then the warlock has the ability to come back from the dead. So like if all else fails and everybody dies, then they can come back. So like it feels like you need a team of one of each of the characters.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Well, that's something you figure like that's probably how they made it initially, was that for all this competitive or cooperative stuff is that they want one of each as opposed to like everyone's just gonna be the warlock.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it was before. Like, hey, like the first raid was like you needed at least one warlock or you couldn't do it. And for the second raid, it's like you definitely needed a hunter because you had to be able to go invisible for this one part. So it was like there was always one class showcased to the point where it's like everyone's like, okay, we gotta have like 5 hunters, otherwise you can't play with us. And now it's like, okay, one of each is like the perfect set.
Yeah. Is there matchmaking or is it
there's
group only?
There is matchmaking for the level 28 that you can do as many times as you want every week. For all the other stuff, there's not matchmaking. And people are still upset about that. Anytime there's not matchmaking, people are upset.
Yeah.
I get it, but nothing's worse than like even finding groups on my own using the website. If you get just one bad person, you can't do it.
Yeah,
you cannot do it. Not even like a raid. 1 or 2 bad people in a group of 6, people can still get everything else accomplished. But when there's 3 of you and 1 in each category, and you have your specific job you have to do, it's not going to work. Like you can't take down bosses where there's 5 things happening at once if one guy just keeps dying.
Yeah, no, I agree on both sides. It's one thing, it's just like, if you're going to give me all these things that I have to work together,
right?
I have to have people that I can work together with. Not, matchmaking with a guy who doesn't speak my language, or matchmaking with somebody who doesn't have a headset, or matchmaking with all this. Like, I agree that you need to have people you can talk to, but I also see it from their side because it runs into the issue where it's just like, I don't have 3 friends who are playing Destiny.
Yeah.
So it's like, I still want to do this Prison of Elders, but I don't want to just do level 28.
I would not be upset if they implemented matchmaking because it doesn't take away the ability to play with your friends anyways or to find that group on your own. It's not one or the other. So if they added it in but be like, hey, we strongly suggest that you play with people you know, that's fine. Because worst case is you get grouped with some bad people and you guys die or whatever, then you can just find another group.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might lose 20 minutes here and there, but it's at least you can play it rather than having to wait to find a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And even then, there's no guarantee.
Yeah, you might find a bunch of people and they still suck.
Right. I responded to one of these posts that was like, hey, we're at the boss level. We need to tighten with the blah, 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 blah. You got to have the Galahorn. You got to be level 34. And I get there and they're 2 level 33s. It's like, well, we can't actually beat this boss because you can't do enough damage to him to beat him. Yeah. So, like, we can try all you want, but it's not going to work.
It's basically up to you to kill the entire boss.
And these final bosses that are crazy, like where you have to kill in the first 30 seconds with like 21 Galahorns. The one guy didn't have a Galahorn. The other guy was only 33, so he's doing less damage. So 2/3 less damage between the 2 of them. Plus they don't have the right gear. It's like, okay, like we could try to do this legit. Like I've tried for hours to do that one boss legit. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Too much is going on where eventually one of those things are going to fall. Like your debuff's going to kill you. You're not going to kill the eye in time. Like all these things are going to happen. So, but it's still fun. I'm still glad they added it in. I think it is a good replacement for the raid. It's not the same thing, but it shares a lot of the same elements, and it's something that's fun and different, and it has more replayability than the raids. Because when you're playing the raids, same exact thing every single time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially, like, even just having the different levels.
Yeah.
It's like 28, 34, 35, or whatever. It's technically, you could play through it, it's going to be different.
Yeah. And the new gear system, too, is a lot of fun, because I have, like, my Trials of Osiris gear that I put on while I'm doing that, and then I have, like, my Prison of Elders gear. Also, I just want to talk about some of the new exotics. So the exotic that I really wanted before the DLC came out that got kind of leaked was called the Ram. It was a helmet for the Warlock, which is the class that I play the most. But what's interesting was the perks where if you come back to life, like if you use the Radiance, it blinds the enemies around you, which would have been great because the thing is, like, you come back to life and then, like, you died because there was a bunch of enemies around you or a bunch of things that were shooting you. And in Destiny, for whatever reason, is, when you die, there's that little blue orb that's floating. the enemies still see you as being there, so they will continue to shoot at your dead body and stand around you. So one, it makes it hard for teammates to revive you, but also if you do revive yourself,
you're still in the middle of all that.
9 times out of 10, if you don't run away super fast and they happen to turn around, you're going to die anyways. And it's super great for things like competitive, especially 3-on-3, where like if you can come back to life and blind the people around you, because like people know now, hey, this team's got 2 warlocks, so be ready for them to come back to life at some point. So like people just like guard people's dead bodies now, waiting for them to come back to life. So if you were able to blind them, that would be great. Unfortunately, when the Ram Helmet came out, it did not have any of those perks, but they moved it to a chest piece that you're able to do that in. But I got the Ram Helmet anyways, which is really cool. So it's like a black ram skull with golden horns, and I have that, plus I have my Trials of Osiris like Egyptian gear on, so it looks like I'm ready to go like to an Illuminati sex party.
Which isn't that what the real game is?
Yeah, that is the real point of the game.
That's the real Destiny.
But yeah, I mean, once again, to reiterate just an overarching thing, I'm really happy with the things they did with this, and it makes me more excited for the things they might do in the future. Another cool thing they added this week was, you know how I said there's like weekly bounties now that you can get from the Queen rather than like daily missions? There's like weekly stuff. This one, because it usually says, hey, go beat this guy, this is his name, this is what he is, this is the area he's in. So you go into patrol, which is, you know, the open world version where you can explore a map.
Yep.
Drive around till you find the place, then you wait for the event to happen. This did not have a location, it just had a planet. And then I went to the planet, and there was a brand new mission there just for this weekly bounty. So they took one of the missions, it was actually a strike mission from before, and they like did it in reverse, and the big area that's usually the boss was the first level, and there was a giant turret there, which is not in the game normally. So you get to hop in this turret and fight a bunch of waves of enemies, and then you keep going on trying to find this guy. But just the fact that they added this new thing in, even though it was small and they, you know, probably cut and pasted from other areas, was cool and different, and it was just for one weekly bounty.
Yeah.
Well, so that was exciting. That was cool.
As long as they keep, you know, adding stuff, then
yeah,
that shows that they actually are putting some time in.
Yeah. Also, I guess they announced that the Transformer developers that worked on the last game, I think they're called High Moon, is now hiring people to help work on Destiny.
Okay.
So this is all just based on a job post they had. But the theory is that Bungie is moving away from doing some of the newer stuff. So like they need help with the next expansions that I don't know if it's the big ones or the DLC after that, but they're moving on to maybe Destiny 2 is the speculation. But the guys High Moon did the last gen port of Call of Duty. So maybe they're just working on that stuff, because I know that Bungie's now developing everything for the like current gen.
Yeah.
And so they have to have another company port it back. So this is all just sort of speculation, but it is interesting if because they're hiring level developers, level designers. So in theory, they're still making brand new stuff for this game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
That'd be good.
Yep. It's shaping up to be a full, complete game.
Couple more DLCs.
Yeah, I mean, things just keep happening that are just like more pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Of like
what should have been.
But also like, hey, this was clearly in the game before. Like I hate keep saying that, and like even the guys that when they were doing the live stream, the Destiny like Twitch reveals, sort of made a comment on how everybody keeps saying that all this stuff used to be in the game and stuff, and they were kind of sick of it. But
yeah. Well, I mean, sorry guys, you're gonna hear it every time because they know, because people know that you cut the main game down to do this.
Right.
So if you don't want to hear that complaint, don't cut the game down.
Yeah. Well, they're saying they haven't, is the point. But
yeah. Well, of course they're saying that. They're not. They wouldn't admit that they did.
Either they're geniuses and thought of all these things ahead of time that they then were like able to perfectly weave into what the structure that's already there. Like one of the first strike missions, they're saying how like this guy came from the prison, he escaped from the prison of elders, and the queen's bounty on him is high, sort of thing, which is exactly what it is. Like the queen's bounty is the new stuff that you get, and the prison of elders is the arena. Like That was the first thing you play in the game, and then all of a sudden now it's like, oh yeah, we just used that stuff and now we created it.
Yeah.
Probably not. Also, I didn't want to bring this up, but in the final missions of the DLC story that you play, they reference the Crow, which is that character that I told you that the testers had talked about was like one of the main characters that got ripped out of the game that was part of the Resistance.
Yeah.
And so like he gets referenced twice in the like radio chatter of the last mission. And so never talked about before that, never talked about it after that. So not only was that stuff there, but the dialogue they used was from 2.5, 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just saying.
Turn of events.
Yeah. I still think they put a lot of work into it post-launch, but
yeah, you think like the groundwork was laid.
And like a lot of these levels, like the new, like brand spanking new areas that you go to for this DLC, people could get there since the beta, like through glitches and stuff. Like, because there's clearly like, hey, there's like this giant area that just has walls up for no reason, and people found ways to get back there, and there's this whole like expanse of rooms and levels and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, now those are the DLC maps.
Yeah.
So
we'll never know. I mean, officially. They'll never officially.
No, they won't be
announce
like,
anything.
yeah.
They'll never just
maybe
be
they'll
like,
be
you
like
got
a
us.
disgruntled employee says something, but
You got us.
I like the theory, though. Some people's theory is that the humans are the bad guys, and that's why these 4 alien races are attacking them.
That'd be a twist.
Yeah. Well, the original twist of the game was that the Traveler was actually bad. That it goes somewhere, makes everyone's technology and health and stuff go way in advance, just so the darkness, which is also part of it, can come in and consume it.
Yeah.
So, and that was supposed to be what the story is like. You were part of the underground resistance that knows the real truth, with like the Crow and the Queen and all this other people. So, anyways, that's all I'm playing. I think that's more than enough for this week.
Okay.
A lot of news, a little bit of Destiny.
Yeah. Future plans.
Yep. So get ready, guys, for next episode or an upcoming episode, I should say.
Sometime in the next 2 weeks. It won't be more than that.
Yeah, we haven't fully decided what we're going to do for E3 yet.
Yeah.
So just a heads up too, we might release an episode normally on the 15th, which is the first day of E3, or we might hold back an episode till like Thursday, Friday, so we can talk about all the juicy, brand new E3 news.
I'm leaning towards the second one.
Me too. I think that's the best way to go.
Because we release on the first day of E3, we won't have really all of the E3 news.
No, it won't be anything that has to do with actually E3. Because we'll have to record it the day before E3.
Yeah. But yeah, so you can follow us at Not Fun Podcast. You can email us at thisisn'tfunnymorepodcast@gmail.com. We have a Facebook. We have a YouTube. We have a podcast.
We do have a podcast, guys.
Your task for upcoming is to get us no more than 3 recommended games that you want me and or Chris to play.
Yeah. Preferably
And, yeah. I mean, unless it's a game that is very specific to one person. Chris's Day Out.
Right? That'd be fun. I want to play that.
Yeah. So you can tweet us those or email us those.
Yep.
Or in a phone conversation, tell me those. But I'm not giving you out my phone number.
Yeah, so only the people that actually know you in person?
Yeah, so good luck with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will see you next episode, which will either be on Monday or probably more likely later in the week. So,
let's just officially make the decision right now.
Okay.
The week of E3, we will not have an episode come out that Monday. Instead, we'll have one come out later in the week. Probably Thursday, Friday. Maybe after that. But it'll be all 100% up-to-date E3 news.
Okay.
Or just stuff that comes out at E3. It won't just be like news articles, but you know what I mean.
We'll just be reading the news articles on
Right. And then the week after that will be an episode where we talk about Massive Chalice and Life is Strange episode 1 and 2.
Yes.
So, play them if you can. If you can't, familiarize yourself with those games just so you know kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you play neither of them, and then we talk about them, you can't yell at us for spoiling them.
Yes,
because we've given you 2-week
and
warning.
We'll give you. Yeah, we'll also let you know in the episode. Hey, we're about to spoil all this stuff.
Yeah, but I don't want to hear a damn thing about. I can't believe you spoiled Life is Strange. I was gonna play it.
Yeah. Also, the way we're gonna do the next episode, is we will do our normal stuff at the beginning. And then the spoiler-heavy stuff will be at the very end. So we'll be like, hey, the rest of the episode, we're going to talk about Life is Strange Episode 2. So if you don't want to hear that, don't listen to it anymore. But there'll be stuff at the beginning. So it's not like you have to completely hide from that episode.
Yeah, we'll start with Massive Chalice, because that has...
Yeah, not really spoilers.
Less
it's
spoilers,
just discussion.
And then we'll end with Life is Strange, because that actually has spoilers.
So there'll still be stuff to listen to if you haven't played Life is Strange. All right, guys.
Peace out.
Peace out.
My bitches.
That's gonna look good on a t-shirt.